It started as just another flight, passengers boarding, bags being stowed, and the usual shuffle of finding seats. But then, tension filled the cabin when a woman, later identified as a Karen, decided to target a black soldier. Her comments and actions quickly escalated, leaving everyone around stunned. The soldier, calm and composed, tried to defuse the situation, but Karen seemed determined to stir trouble. The twist: the soldier wasn't traveling for leisure. He was on his way to see his critically ill daughter, who was fighting for her life in the hospital. What happened next left everyone speechless, including Karen herself. A heartbreaking revelation about his daughter would not only expose the depth of her cruelty, but also bring about a moment that no one on that plane could have predicted. You won't believe how the story unfolds. Stay tuned to see how compassion and humanity triumph in the most unexpected way. As the plane prepared for takeoff, passengers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to respond to Karen's escalating behavior. She was loud, pointing fingers and muttering comments that grew more uncomfortable by the second. The soldier, wearing his uniform, remained composed, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with her aggression. Despite her words, he didn't retaliate. He simply sat there, quietly enduring the situation. People nearby tried to step in, asking Karen to stop, but she waved them off, doubling down on her behavior. What no one knew yet was why the soldier was so quiet. Beneath his calm exterior, his heart was heavy. He had just received devastating news that his young daughter, only 9 years old, was in critical condition. He was rushing to her side, unsure if he would even make it in time. But Karen's cruel remarks kept coming, until one moment changed everything. As the plane reached cruising altitude, the tension in the air was palpable. Karen, still visibly upset, began complaining to the flight attendants, insisting that the soldier should be moved. She loudly claimed she didn't feel comfortable sitting near him, causing murmurs among the passengers. Some tried to reason with her, but Karen refused to back down, her voice growing sharper with every word. The soldier, visibly drained but still calm, kept his gaze forward, gripping a small photo in his hand. From across the aisle, an older woman had been watching everything unfold. She finally spoke up, asking Karen why she was being so cruel. But Karen dismissed her, muttering something under her breath. What no one knew yet was the deeper pain the soldier carried. The photo in his hand was of his daughter, a smiling, bright-eyed little girl who, at that very moment, was hooked up to machines, fighting for every breath. And as Karen continued her tirade, the flight crew decided they couldn't ignore it any longer. The flight crew approached Karen, trying to defuse the situation. They asked her to lower her voice and show respect, but she refused to listen, insisting that she shouldn't have to sit near someone she found threatening. Her words caused a visible ripple of discomfort among the passengers, and murmurs of frustration spread throughout the cabin. Yet, through it all, the soldier remained silent, his focus unwavering on the photo in his hand. Finally, one of the flight attendants turned to him and asked if he was okay. His voice, quiet but firm, broke the tense silence as he explained why he was on this flight. He shared just enough for people to understand. His daughter was in critical condition, and he was racing against time to be with her. Gasps echoed softly as passengers around him realized the gravity of the situation. Karen, however, still seemed unmoved. She scoffed, brushing off his words as though they didn't matter. But the weight of what he'd shared started to shift the mood in the cabin. Other passengers began stepping in, defending him and calling out Karen's behavior. It was clear the tide was turning, but Karen's reaction would soon take an unexpected turn that no one could have predicted. The tension in the cabin grew thicker as more passengers rallied behind the soldier. Karen, now visibly flustered, tried to defend herself, claiming she had no way of knowing his story. But the damage was already done, and her lack of remorse only fueled the frustration around her. The flight attendants debated whether to escalate the issue further, but before they could act, the soldier stood up. His voice, steady but filled with emotion, cut through the chaos. "I didn't come here to argue or cause trouble," he said, holding up the photo of his daughter. "I just want to get to my little girl before it's too late." His words hung in the air, leaving Karen momentarily speechless. The cabin fell silent, with passengers staring at her, waiting for some kind of reaction. But then, unexpectedly, Karen's expression shifted, not to apology, but to something more defensive. She blurted out something that shocked everyone, a claim about her own struggles, as if to justify her actions. But before she could finish, an older passenger near the back of the plane, who had been quietly listening the entire time, stood up. "Enough," she said firmly, her voice carrying a quiet authority. What she revealed next changed the entire dynamic of the flight and set the stage for a moment no one could have seen coming. The older woman's voice commanded everyone's attention. Slowly, she made her way to the front of the plane, her eyes locking with Karen's. "You don't know the pain this man is carrying," she said firmly, her voice unwavering. Then, with a deep breath, she shared her own story, a story of loss. She revealed that she had lost her son, a soldier, years ago. He had been deployed overseas and never made it back. Her words were heavy with emotion, silencing even Karen. The entire plane listened as the older woman spoke about how every second with a loved one is precious, and how cruel it was to rob someone of peace during such a moment. By now, Karen's face had softened, her bravado replaced with visible discomfort. She finally broke down, stammering an apology to the soldier, but he didn't respond right away. Instead, he simply nodded, his focus still on the photo in his hand. The twist came moments later when the captain announced they were ahead of schedule and would land earlier than expected. Relief washed over the soldier's face as passengers erupted in applause, sensing the weight of what this meant for him. Karen, shaken but quiet, offered her seat to the soldier so he could be closer to the front and exit faster. It was a small gesture, but it marked a shift, a moment of humanity shining through the chaos. When the plane landed earlier than expected, the soldier quickly gathered his things, his urgency clear. Passengers stepped aside, offering words of support as he hurried down the aisle. The older woman gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder, whispering, "Go to her. She needs you." He nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude, and disappeared into the terminal. The cabin was quiet after he left, the weight of the moment lingering. Karen remained in her seat, her demeanor completely changed. She sat silently, her gaze fixed on the window, perhaps reflecting on her actions. The older woman returned to her seat, and passengers exchanged quiet conversations about how one man's strength had shifted the entire flight. The story didn't end on the plane, though. News later circulated that the soldier had made it just in time to hold his daughter's hand. In that moment, love and kindness had triumphed.